In this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the sub 5% mortgage program that Opendoor just announced, and it's going viral. I'll also discuss the down payment assistance programs that both California and Santa Barbara are trying to use to get more buyers into the market. And then I'll give you the bottom line and show you the stats that we are going to be tracking moving forward, seeing how all of these factors change things. First things first, what you should know is that Opendoor is a company that makes money on seller motivation. Sellers get into a pickle, they want to cut out the realtor, they want to cut out the middlemen, they go to Opendoor, they get a below market price offer pretty quickly. And what Opendoor does is then turns around and tries to make a profit on that home by maybe fixing it up a little bit and putting it back on the market. That would be a great business model if the market was stable, buyer demand was stable, supply didn't change, and they were really good at pricing homes. Unfortunately, none of those things are true, and Opendoor has been a bloodbath. They have been getting destroyed the last 6 months. I think that their stock price has gone down 50%. So 6-month chart is at $10.52 back in September 11th, and now it's at $5.18. So what are they going to do? The CEO announced that they're going to do a 4.99% mortgage on Opendoor homes for buyers. It's a million views. You would think that this would skyrocket the price, that it would just go through the roof, that everyone would be super excited about it. Especially since they're saying that there's an AI native mortgage platform that they've built and partnered with Lennar to build a platform that essentially they no longer need to pay loan officer commissions. There's lower origination costs. There's faster underwriting, builder wholesale mortgage channels, the works. They're also offering 1% below what the normal mortgage rate would be. So they're competing with Rocket Mortgage, Origin Point, all these companies that have been doing this for a long time. And you would just think that people would be going bonkers about it. But the issue is that one, they haven't really shown that it works yet, that it increases the margins or increases their money supply, their revenue. And also, this is just on Opendoor properties right now. Their major issue is that for every day that they hold a property, their holding cost is up. So they're paying insurance, they're paying taxes, they're paying everything, paying utilities to keep the lights on. They're paying for a lot of things, and they're holding a lot of properties because their supply is going up in some areas because there's building, right? There's new homes being built. There's also demand shifting because people are losing their jobs or moving out of the area, and that is increasing the amount of holding costs for per property that they're going through. So then they have to throttle back, and their whole business model is based on momentum. They need to continue to sell these properties and continue to get this arbitrage opportunity. Yes, it sounds great in theory, hasn't been proved yet. Is it a big deal? It could be a big deal. The reason it could be a big deal is because if Opendoor could master this low cost mortgage, that they have an AI native flow and no underwriting friction without it being an Opendoor property. Well, first of all, let's just talk about it being an Opendoor property. If they're really good at getting these days on market lower, they actually are able to get buyer demand higher and getting these homes sold, that attracts more people, and they're able to make that be their P of this product, and then they show it works. Now they're able to offer it on properties that are not Opendoor properties. Then they just broke the 4-minute mile, and now all these other companies could start to go down this path where they're trying to offer better service, quicker service. I don't know if it's better, but quicker service, lower cost service for 5% mortgages. And right now we're at 6% mortgage. So 5.98%, and we haven't been there at 5%, 4.9% since August 2022. So for reference, if you look at the median sales price for 2025, it was 2.3 million. And right now we're right around 6%. So the payment index, the principal and interest for a median price home is $11,372. Well, if you decrease the 30-year rate mortgage down to 4.99%, it's a $10,000 mortgage payment, not including your insurance and all the other stuff. That's an 11% decrease in your monthly payment. That would be a big deal. That would be a pretty large deal. More buyers would be able to enter the market, and that on its own would be awesome. Then you have the California Dream For All shared appreciation loan that is also offering another $150,000 to allow home buyers to get into the market, have more reserves, be able to qualify for these houses. And this is great. It's for first generation home buyers. So your parents couldn't own a home before this. And you obviously have to be a current resident of California, and you have to be a first-time homeowner or a first-time home buyer, which obviously shows that California wants people to have affordable options for homes in the area. And then Santa Barbara followed suit and created a workforce homebuyer program because they got a $5 million loan, $4.8 million loan from Cal Home grant funds. And that would allow them to offer $200,000 for people buying in North County, for people up to 80% of the adjusted median income. And in Santa Barbara, in South Santa Barbara, it would be 80 to 230% AMI. So it's 80 grand to $250,000. You can get $125,000 for down payment. Obviously, if you see the writing on the wall, the government wants people to buy houses. Why do they want the people to buy houses? Because everyone who buys a house, every time a house sells, there's 6 people, 8 people, 10 people involved. Title officer, contractor, inspectors. There are so many people. There's taxes too. Santa Barbara is actually talking about increasing the property taxes for homes that are sold over $3 million. So Santa Barbara's in a deficit, $14.6 million budget deficit, and California is too. Obviously, the United States is as well. Everyone's dealing with a deficit right now. And the city council has decided that they want to change the property taxes, the county property tax, transferred tax. Under the current tax structure, the city collects 55 cents per $1,000 of property sale value. You can think of that as $5,000. They're thinking about making that up to $9.50 per $1,000. So could be $30,000, could be $50,000 for homes that are $5 million and all the way up. So you can think of that as 25% of the properties that sell in Santa Barbara City are over $3 million. 75% are under that. And those 25%, they would be getting $5 million to $6 million annually to try to shore up this $14 million deficit in the budget. And you can see here that if they don't do anything in 2026, the projection is that we'd have a $19 million deficit. This is based on the city council meeting from February 24th. And then that would just continue to decrease until we have literally no reserve and no money to do anything about emergencies or pay salaries. There's going to be pensions. Things would be really bad if they didn't figure out how to bring down the spending. But obviously, the expenditures go from 248 million in 2026, and it was 212 million in 2024, and they're going to go up to 272 million in 2028 is what the forecast is, because they're increasing the staff members' salaries by 5% per year, and we're not making 5% more per year. So they're going to have to figure out some other way to do that. And one way that they want to do that, well, I actually don't know if they're going to do that with rent freezes, but they are trying to make it easier for staff members to live here by freezing the rents. And they just passed a temporary rent freeze, and this ordinance would be set to expire on December 31st. Or if a permanent program takes effect, then they would no longer need to freeze it because there would be a rent control in place. And then there's also a just cause eviction amendment. I think that this is a trend towards the owners of property. Real estate has continued to increase. The rents are increasing because utilities are increasing, insurance is increasing, everything is getting more expensive, and they obviously can't keep paying, making up the difference in their budget for a lot of these city employees who are going to be consistently in their ear because they work with them, the city council. And that's driving a lot of this rent freeze, rent control debate. But then the landlords, the Santa Barbara Rental Property Association, actually came out and said that they are going to sue the city and challenge this proposed stabilization plan and rent freeze as an unconstitutional taking, violating due process and equal protection, and unlawfully interfering with private contracts in violation of the contracts clause. And they essentially are saying that, no, you're not going to take our right to increase our rents. We already wrote these contracts. You're changing all of our leases, and we're not going to have it. Figure out something else. Rent stabilization is bad economics, is what they said. And owners need a return on their investment even as costs rise, and must keep their property in first rate and safe condition. So that is what you should know about rent freezes and rent control. Definitely something that should be on your radar. And what we can talk about now is how it all comes together. What are the stats? What should we actually be talking about? So here we can see a new listings. Last month, we went way down in December and then back up to 111 new listings. We would think that new listings actually may continue to increase if sellers start to get nervous about not knowing if their rental property is going to be rent controlled or controlled in general. If the market's not going to continue to improve for them, then maybe they'll take their gains from the last 10 years when the rental property probably doubled in value. Our new listings are down when compared to last year in January, but not by a ton. It's 111 this year in January, and then 133 last year in January at the same time. So pending sales, the demand is the same, 76 went under contract in January, and last year was the same. The sales to list price ratio is actually higher. So that means there was less discounting this year than there was last year when it was 91%. So 93% looks like sellers have more leverage there, and the demand is the same while new listings are down. So there was less supply, there was the same demand, so there was more leverage for sellers, and active days on market is higher. So last year, the homes that were on the market for 144 days at that point, and now that they're at 166 days. So there's a lot of homes that are just sitting on the market, waiting to be sold, and then closed days on market, 55 last month or last year in January, and this year it's 56. So what you can see is that velocity is the same, days on market for closing when the home's priced right. When the homes are not priced right, then they sit even longer than they did last year. The demand is higher or the same at least, because closed days on market is the same, pending sales is the same, but supply is lower than it was last year. So we're seeing there that if you price your home right and it comes on, the buyer demand is definitely there. Bottom line of all of this is that everything is always changing and seemingly for the better. Buyers are getting access to new innovations from private companies. The government is decreasing the rates for our mortgages. They're also offering shared appreciation and down payment assistance programs. I'm going to be watching pending sales to make sure that demand is still staying, watching rates. Hopefully they continue to decrease and we're seeing affordability increase. And then obviously the funding for these shared appreciation and down payment assistance programs. The funding is not unlimited, so if you want to get in on those, you definitely should reach out right away. And then, of course, this lawsuit with rent control and rent freezes between the Rental Property Association and the City Council. If you got value out of this, please like and subscribe. I surely appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.